I've ridden a fair few different kinds of motorcycle in my time, but there's one segment I've pretty much neglected, and that's the luxury megatourer. I guess partially that's because I've never understood why you'd want to ride around on such a couch on wheels, 400 kilos of metal that seems to combine all the worst features of a car and a bike. It's also partially because they're so far out of my budget that the question's largely academic anyway. But I'm always up for new experiences, so when the opportunity came up to spend a week getting to know one of the top 5 heaviest motorcycles you can buy, I jumped at the chance. Here she is, the Victory Vision. Victory's made a big impression on the cruiser scene since the brand was created by Polaris about 10 years ago. The Victory formula seems simple enough. They make American-style cruisers with huge V-twin motors, and they make sure that whatever they build, it's bigger, smarter, newer, faster, sexier, and often cheaper than the nearest Harley-Davidson. In the Vision's case, that's probably the ultra-classic Electroglide, but it almost seems unfair to compare the two, because the Victory makes the Harley look and feel like an absolute relic. Not that Harley riders care, mind you. They want the old-style look, that trademark sound, that outlaw bad boy feeling. Harley's done its best to innovate in the last few years, but customers keep on voting with their wallets for those old pushrod motors. Victory's a much younger company, and its consumer base isn't so obsessed with history, so they've been free to take a much more modern approach in the creation of this 50-degree, 106 cubic inch Freedom motor. And while it might be new technology, it still has that familiar old American V-twin sound. Have a listen. Oh yeah. Even with this fairly mild and almost civilised Stage 1 exhaust system, it's still a symphony of low end that just comes up right through you. It's full of character and menace. It feels every bit as massive as 1700 odd cc's of V-twin should. And if you ride it around town at low RPMs, you can really enjoy every big fat explosion that happens underneath you. You could ride the Vision around all day like that, and you'd have a very satisfying bike, but you'd still be missing half the picture, because it's not just a grunter. When you really drop the hammer and rev this thing, it delivers a big top-end rush and a high-performance snarl that you'd never expect if you were used to a pushrod valve Harley. Ride it up to the red line and this thing has a real bite to match its bark. Of course, that bite has to pull a whopping 641 kilos if you include a rider, a passenger and a full load of luggage. That's still a lot less than even the smallest cars, but then you don't have to hold your smart car up with one leg at the traffic lights. There's just no getting around the fact that the Vision's a real handful around town. Too wide to lane split, too heavy for walking pace riding in a traffic jam. And everybody stares at you. Maybe it's because of the out there Arlen Ness design of the thing. Maybe it's because of the sheer size. But I can't help but think that some of them are just hoping I'm going to fall over so they can laugh at the rich guy who can't hold his blingmobile road train up at the traffic lights. Anyway, get it moving a bit and it actually handles and steers really nicely in that loungy, toury sort of way. The weight stops being a problem above walking pace and it actually becomes a real pleasure throwing this battleship of a thing around through S-bends and roundabouts. But it's an open road bike and that's where it excels. In the spirit of luxury touring, I went straight out and rode it for 3 hours in a straight line. And I'll say this right away, when it comes to the long haul, now I'm totally sold on cruise control. Apart from being a real license saver in this age of hair-trigger speed cameras, it really makes this super comfy bike even more relaxing to ride. Of course, once you've got cruise on and an open road in front of you, there's really not much to do. You're more or less alone with your thoughts as the miles rack up. Although it gives you time to appreciate some of the gadgets, the heated seats and grips, the extra HID driving light, the little switch that moves the windscreen up and down, the trip computer. And the cranking 4-speaker stereo, which comes with an iPod jack so you can listen to quality music instead of the rubbish that's on the radio these days. Pillions are going to love you. This sort of bike could be a real marriage saver. Passengers travel in complete comfort and style. There's grab rails and a backrest and enough luggage space for at least 2 bathroom shelves worth of cosmetics and hair product. They might not like the 450k fuel tank range though. You'll be getting a tap on the shoulder for a toilet break long before the bike needs a drink. For such a massive bike, it really does seem to enjoy a good thrashing. Corner speed might be 20 to 30 k's down on what you'd get on a sport bike, but then the roar of the engine at full throttle as you power out and work through the gears is really addictive. The brakes, well, perhaps that's a matter of opinion. The rear brake's certainly very good, and it's a linked system, so the back brake pedal operates the middle pistons in the 6-pot front brakes as well. The front brake lever operates the remaining 4 pistons in the front brakes, and I found it underpowered, bordering on dangerous. I understand that manufacturers tend to dumb down the front brakes on cruisers a bit so they don't scare the cruiser riders. But the Vision's not some raked-out chopper that's going to spend its days trundling from garage to coffee shop. It's got such a great engine and handling that you will want to ride it hard from time to time. And if you're going hard, you really do need a front brake that can pull you up without needing a forearm as thick as Popeye's. Now, I was going to complain a little bit about the screen, mainly because I'm not a big fan of these vast expanses of plastic on a motorcycle. And also because the first few days I had this bike, and all the 500 or 600 freeway miles I did, were in sweltering 30-degree heat. And I found myself really looking for the air conditioning button on the dash here, or at least wishing there wasn't so much plastic getting in the way of that cooling airflow. But then I had the experience the other night of riding it in absolutely shocking weather. It was raining, I had to make about 40 or 50 k's on the freeway, and I got off at the end at a roadhouse to have a bite to eat and warm up a little bit. And I got ready. You know that thing when you walk into a diner when you've been riding in the rain and everybody kind of looks at you and you feel like a cat that's just got out of the bath. So I was walking up to the counter and the fella said, "Mate, you are absolutely..." I cut him off. I said, "Yeah, I know, soaked, mate, but you know, that's riding, isn't it?" He's gone, "No, you're absolutely dry." And I looked down and he was completely right. My boots were a little bit wet, my helmet was a little bit wet, but somehow all this plastic on this bike had kept my jeans, my jacket, the rest of me absolutely bone dry. And these little plastic flaps help a little bit with that. If you open them out, you're even more protected from the elements. So I guess you can understand why they're there if you're planning to cover distance in bad weather, because this kind of bike is an absolute weapon for that kind of work. The only other thing I'd really complain about is that because this is the kind of bike, I mean, look at it, that makes you the centre of attention everywhere you go, there's absolutely no dignified way to get on and off it. The back seat's just too high, you catch your boot, and you feel like a bit of a wally every time you get on and off. But I guess that's all just part of making such a comfortable seating arrangement for the rider and pillion. All in all, the Vision feels like a real quality product. It costs an awful lot, but you can see where the money's gone. It walks all over the competition from Harley-Davidson in terms of performance and reliability and handling, but it's got a very similar sound and big bike presence. It's not as fast or as smooth as a Goldwing, but it's got a really involving engine that just satisfies your inner animal in a way that Honda can't. If you weigh it up as a luxury tourer, the Vision's an outstanding bike. If you treat it as an all-rounder, well, it's probably a lot better than you'd expect. Has it sold me on the whole mega tourer segment? Well, no, I still like doing wheelies and going fast. But at least now I can see that shiny, gentle giants like the Victory Vision do have their advantages.